Welcome to the Empowered Money Girl, where we break down the barriers to financial confidence, celebrate women's wins, and reveal the secrets to living boldly and well. I'm your host, Josette Mandela. Today's guest is someone who has spent more than 2 decades at the forefront of protecting our digital lives. Danyetta Fleming Magana is the founder and CEO of Covenant Security Solutions, a cybersecurity firm she launched in 2003 with a mission to challenge conventional thinking about information security and develop innovative ways to safeguard the way we live, work, and connect. A certified information systems security professional and fellow of the Institute of Strategic Risk Management, Danyetta is recognized as a trusted expert in cybersecurity, critical infrastructure protection, and strategic risk management. Her expertise has earned her numerous awards, including the Black Engineer of the Year Award for Most Promising Engineer in Government and the Army's Achievement Medal for Civilian Service. She serves as an advisory board member for TinyG, the Global Terrorism Information Network, and has contributed her expertise to organizations focused on national security, critical infrastructure, and emerging cyber threats. Her company has been recognized among the Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies in America and named one of the nation's most promising enterprise security companies in America. A graduate of the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign with a Bachelor of Science in Engineering, Danyetta has built a career at the intersection of technology, leadership, and service. Please help me welcome the visionary, accomplished, and highly respected Danyetta Fleming Magana.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Oh, you're so welcome. So, Danyetta, can you take us back to the beginning? What was the path like that you took to get to where you are today?
Um, it was an interesting path. I like to say it was a combination of intentionality and serendipity and just being really led. I'm a person of faith, so really being led by the Holy Spirit to come into this space. So I started out getting an engineering degree, as you saw from, as you just read from University of Illinois, and this is where the serendipity came in. I went to a conference. They always held conferences on the East Coast for particularly to encourage young Black students to get into engineering. And I suspect through that, I ended up getting an announcement to come work with Department of Defense at the time um, as a entry level engineer. And I didn't understand anything that they asked in the job announcement, which for most people that would be scary. For me, I was like, I have no idea what they're talking about, but this sure sounds interesting. And so I actually took the job, and believe it or not, it was actually the smallest compensation offer I got at the time. But just something in me said, just throw caution to the wind and take this job. And so. Um, when I got to the East Coast, I got the opportunity to work in, at that time, it was emerging. I think we call it cybersecurity now, but in those days it was information security. And not a lot of people were doing that at all. And matter of fact, I don't think it was on the radar of most companies. At the time I was involved, some of the major brands you hear about today, major tech companies, they maybe had one or two people on staff that dealt with information security at that time. And so I was just fortunate to have landed in a space where they were literally taking this from concept and putting it into reality. And I was fortunate enough to learn in that environment and grow from that. So fast forward a little bit to being able to expand in cyber and then getting into working for a commercial defense contractor. And I just felt the tug in my heart that I needed to go out, step out on my own. I was looking at what cybersecurity meant, and because I was fortunate enough to be so early involved, I understood that as people were starting to build all these networks and tie their lives into it, um, our original tagline was securing your way of life. And at that time, people probably thought I was crazy. Matter of fact, I was told I was crazy by a few people. They're like, that'll never be its own thing. No one will ever really buy cyber services. And I said, no, I really think, I think there's something here. And I'm thankful that I listened to that internal nudging. And so we are 23 years now with Covenant Security Solutions. So stepped out the box and never looked back. A lot of ups and downs, but thankful that we've endured and continue to thrive.
So when you took that leap of faith and decided, this is what I'm going to do, and more
Mhm.
importantly, I think I can do better than the people that I'm working for. What did you see that made you think I can do this on my own? I don't need to be working for somebody else.
Um, it's a couple of different things. One, um, I think you have to have belief in yourself, right? Belief that you can learn and trust. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm a person of faith, so I really had trust that from what I knew and what I felt God was telling me to do, that I could step out and make it happen. I started the company, I was 28 years old, so which is not really normal in this industry for defense contractors to start their business at 28 because it's probably one of the most difficult because of all the regulations and the different things that go into doing that. But I just had that internal knowing and that belief. And then also, I think with any business, you have to have a sense of the arc of time. And what I mean by that is that you have to look out and see where are things headed, right? Like I was mentioning, I could see that, people would stand around the desk and talk about how at that time, this is called early OOs, Cisco was doubling, right?
Mm.
Facebook was doubling. I mean, Microsoft was doubling. So all of these tech companies were getting massive amounts of investment. They were growing. And I understood as they grew, so with cybersecurity, because they were growing because we were putting our lives into the hands of this technology. But there was little discussion at that time and probably a little bit more now. I still think it's very underrated as a field.
Mm.
Even though we say we need more cyber professionals, I don't think people really understand to the extent that cybersecurity is coupled with all of this investment. And it's only expanded um, when you look at what's happening with AI. So for me, it was just looking at that arc of time, looking at, what people were doing and saying, there's a there there. At some point, the rubber's going to meet the road, that people are going to have to sit back and realize, this impacts me, right? It's not just a reset a password, right? This
Mm.
is my life. This is affects, if you get a fake phone call from someone claiming to be, your son or your daughter, that impacts you, right? That's emotional, that's not just financial. There's a lot of different layers to it. So it was just the combination of both. And probably the biggest thing is just trusting yourself. Sometimes you just got to be a little crazy and take risk, right? You can't no risk, no reward. And I think people want reward without realizing sometimes you got to be a little off. You got to do things other people think aren't necessarily the safest route, but safe has its own rewards, right? So that's how I ended up here.
And as you were mentioning, the back in the early 2000s, no one was talking cybersecurity. No
Right.
no one was even really worrying about what I put on this form is where's it going? What are they doing
Yeah.
with my information? They there was this cool thing that I just signed up for, and that really sounds neat.
Right.
But that, like you say, they were asking for names and addresses and phone numbers and all this information. And back then we were just saying, here, go ahead, take.
Yeah. Yeah. Take because we never thought about it. We never thought, and that's the thing that is interesting is now we have to think not from terms of today, but what is tomorrow. And I think that's also a big deal when you talk about, women in finance. We oftentimes, one of the hardest parts for me is I had a whole period where I had to step back. I had issues that had happened in my company that put me in a position that I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to recover from this? But it also turned out to be a blessing because there were two things. One, it put me in a position that I had to now take my eyes off the ball of covenant and fully put open my aperture and realize, okay, I've got three children, right? And their needs for me isn't just financial and getting a good school and doing that, their needs are we need to understand who our mom is, who are we becoming as adults, how do I connect with them? And so when we talk about um, being able to look over the arc of time, that was when I first started really trying to look at things even from a broader aperture of personal ambition to say, okay, well, what does that look like for me as a mother in business, right? So I had to step back and sometimes things took longer because, I'm running around to dance lessons and swim lessons and all the things that moms do, but I don't regret 1 second of it because for me, then that's also looking at legacy, right? How do
Mhm.
you build legacy? You can't build legacy with, just saying I put you through a good school, right? Legacy is built being a part of their lives and helping shape who they become in society, in the world, and how they choose to treat people. And that's not something you farm out to a nanny, you know?
Mhm. Agreed.
You know,
I mean, they
so,
are your kids,
hmm
and I
yeah.
think that's part of the challenges that we're seeing today is as well with so much online activity that kids have access to these days. And now you're starting to hear some pushback from like major countries, not even just
hmm
individuals, where they're
Yeah.
saying, wait a minute, maybe we're not doing the right thing for the next generation.
That's absolutely true. And so it's weird. Like I say, sometimes I should say it's weird, but that's the arc of life, right? You you make decisions and you're like, I'm going, 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 and everything looks great. And then you have an event that puts you back into, I would say, reseat you into a different perspective and into reality. And one of that for me was going through a trying time in my business and then sitting back and realizing like, okay, this is the blessing in it, right? Like I can now realize that I wasn't doing the things I need to do from a legacy standpoint and also being very clear about how do we shape what happens with our children online. And so, one of the things passions that I have is I have a colleague of mine and dear friend who runs a nonprofit called Protect Us Kids. And that is one of her pieces. And I support her as much as I can in terms of being able to help young people understand and not just understand what happens online, but also a lot of them are victims and they're ashamed
Mm.
to say that they've been victims because we've put technology in the hands of 9-year-olds, 12-year-olds. I mean, and you think back to when you were 9 or 12 and you're like, you could have stole a popsicle from me and I would have had, I wouldn't have understood. So let alone now you're online with fake personas, fake, you just you're defenseless, right? The
Mm.
children are truly defenseless and they're being taken advantage of at a rate that unfortunate we don't even talk about to the level this should be on the news every night. Warning parents, warning caregivers that you have to take that time and you have to be truly intimately involved in your child's life. And even when you are, it's still hard with the technology. You can't sit there and watch every single thing they do, and even some of the you know, my kids, I like to say that maybe they're super smart because they have two tech parents, but uh but they would jailbreak those like you would put on like the little pads that they have, like the leapfrog or something like that, and you say, "Oh, these are the parental controls." My kids be out of the parental controls in like 3 days flat, maybe 24 hours. They'd figure out like, oh, if I hit reset, then I can get, which was supposed to be for the parents, but so we really haven't spent the time, the energy, and the money to protect our future. Our children are our future. When we all get to the point that we are in, retirement, Shady Pines retirement home, who's taking care of us? That's the children today. And they are being, you know, um, financially harmed, emotionally harmed. And I'm glad you brought that up because it's definitely something that's not given enough attention. Like where are we going to be 20 years from now when these children are basically they literally are emotionally harmed, some of them when they get online. So,
And is that something that your company deals with, or are you strictly a government
oh
organization?
no, we actually deal with it as well. We partner with the Protect Us Kids Foundation, and so they actually have a group of courses and things that they do for the young people specifically. Where Covenant comes in is we focus more both commercially as well as government. So on the commercial side, one of the big things that we've started is a digital identity practice. And we're working with organizations, working with their executives, working with um, individuals to help them in terms of can they protect themselves, protect their identity, set up protocols so they can verify people that are connected to them, and especially when you're talking executives and organizations, whether that's federal or commercial, you have no choice but to be forward facing. That's the requirement of the job, right? You have to go out, you have to do speeches, you have to talk to people. So you end up being very high profile, which means that your information becomes even more easily scraped, gathered, and therefore you become an extreme target because you can walk in a room, say if you're CEO of, I'm just going to say Coca-Cola, just to give an example, right? You're CEO of Coca-Cola. Everyone wants to hear from you, right? You're going to
Yeah.
get your emails answered. You're going to get deals. If someone said that they sent you a purchase order and you've got to pay this to get this, you're not questioning it. And especially the more that they can use that identity information to make it look real, to help you bypass what I call your your five senses. They're in that space now, and it's really a little bit scary. I think for all of us, it reminds me of the movie Minority Report. I don't know if you ever watched that movie.
Yes.
But if your audience did, there's the whole scene where he walks into the gap and it scans his eyeball, and now all of a sudden he's Mr. Yokomoto or something like that to that extent. And he's trying to hide because he's like, well, okay, you scanned my eyeballs, but they really belonged to someone else prior, but then it's automatically taking that data and articulating, okay, well, you should be in this section, and these are the types of sweaters. And so that to me is sort of where we're headed and why identity is really the new perimeter and why people um, even financially, right? That's a big deal. A lot of people are on hard times because of all the layoffs and things that are going on, and then they're getting victimized again when they go to do job hiring. People are already applying to jobs. You have some nation state actors even that are using people's identity information to apply to jobs. The job the company, we're going to keep using Coca-Cola, may say you already applied. We can't we already rejected you, and they're like, I've never applied. I've never.
Mm.
So, the identity, I call it identity crisis that we're having, and it's we're having on multiple levels right now. So, and especially when it comes to financial, people are being victimized multiple different ways.
Yeah, and you talk about that going out and trying to get a job and then having either either somebody has already used your identity and gotten rejected, or you don't even know. The
Right.
systems are so automated now that it's like you're just throwing paper into the wind and hoping
Yeah.
something lands on a desk. It's
Yeah. I think it's going to end up going back to in person, which is costly, but the data is so it's so we have a term in cybersecurity we call data integrity, and that basically is exactly how it sounds. It means that you know that that information is accurate, it's true, it's verified. And we're living in an age where data integrity is probably next to zero. I would say in some cases, probably negative. The fact that someone shows up with a social security card and a picture ID doesn't mean that that's the person who's presenting it. And that's become a very difficult specter in a world that was, the automation came to speed up the process of a human verified world. We're in a world where it's no longer just human verified, right? We've now got machines to contend with. So, the other movie is Terminator, right? So we're a bit Terminator Matrix. We're coming into that era where, that capacity for us to know fact from fiction is being blurred in real time. And so, if you remember in the beginning, I was saying the arc of time, right? So it's really, those are the kinds of things. I was watching those movies like, oh my gosh, I think that really could happen, you know? And by God's grace, I lived long enough to think I'm starting to see it happen, right? I'm starting to see where people are giving their whole companies over to machines, right?
mm.
You've got a couple of unicorns out there now, multi-billion dollar unicorns that, 10 people or less. So we're in a new place.
And speaking of that, I mean, your focus obviously is on the risk management and trying to maintain data integrity and all the good things that go with
Yes.
the information security and keeping us all safe in
Yes.
a very online world. Is there
Hmm.
anything that you've learned over the years that you wish that you had applied earlier to your own life?
Um, there's two things. One, probably being more intentional with the information that I share, and that's interesting to say as a cybersecurity professional. I think early on, I was, one good thing is that I was always shredding everything,
Mm,
but I think in terms of like investigating sites and being very, very intentional and also more intentional with my children. I think I finally kind of got to that maybe around their teens. I was like, okay, let me make sure I scrub them and lock their credits and do all the things that are necessary to make sure that they have, integrity in their digital lives.
mm,
But I would say probably even more so because what I couldn't predict, and I don't think anybody could really predict, was the speed with which AI was adopted
mm.
and its pervasiveness, right? It can take data from terabytes of information and make sense of it and connect information in ways that we never thought about, right? We think our medical records, just things to
Mm.
you never thought about, right? Like, okay, you drink six sodas a week and it can probably take the data and say, well, we know by 62 and a half, you're going to have these sets of problems, right? And we know that because of that, the genetic markers say your children will start to develop these sets of problems by 42. So that, it's data on steroids, and yeah, that's something I probably would have been more cautious with being in hindsight because there's correlations now that I don't think we could have even dreamed of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I agree. The whole cyber the that whole AI world is
Hmm.
really on the one hand, it's it's a game changer when you're looking
Yes.
to create social media posts and different things in your business to get the word out about yourself. But on the other hand, it was scary the first couple of times I used it. It's like, how did you know that?
Right. Right. And it's a little unnerving sometimes because when you use it, you realize, okay, it's pulling data from literally all across the globe in real time. And so then you get very cautious about the things that you put online. You get cautious about how you share content. Yes, you want to grow, but then you don't also want someone who may be necessarily a competitor running around with your data. So it's a whole new world and it happens so extremely fast. And I don't think most people, organizations have had time to really digest. And so that's also one of the things that we're doing is helping organizations understand what that looks like from a governance standpoint, and how to implement controls to be able to protect their information, protect their people, and protect their bottom line. Because there's a lot that's changing, and just because that was your secret sauce yesterday, um, you hook in the wrong AI platform, 50 other people have that secret sauce.
Mm,
So, it's a very interesting time. And if they got it through AI, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's how can I put it? It doesn't mean that it now you retain intellectual property rights.
mm.
And that, there's a lot that's going to open up. So I always tell people think, oh, cyber, we're going to go away because they're going to have the tool scanning. I'm like, great, let the tool scan. But I'm like, we've got a whole other, we got a lot of other things to do. You know, we're going to become like that lead character. I can't think of the lead character's name in Minority Report, where he was like the police officer looking at the big screens. Like that'll be the future of crime. That'll be the future of cyber, right? So,
Yeah, and like you say, especially in the health or the financial space, you don't want that information just floating around out there. And how do you really know that the platform that you're using is fully protected so that if you go and use your online banking app or you go to
mhm,
your doctor's portal, which is supposedly, safe place for you to interact with the doctor, that
right.
AI isn't going to figure out how to get in there and start spreading your
I mean,
information.
well, I'm going to say something a little scary. A lot of those portals already have AI in them. So whether you so trying to keep it out is probably a little late right now. A lot of them already have artificial intelligence connected to them. Um, and part of that was pushed primarily by the insurance industries.
Uh,
They're looking for, ways to save on cost, understand um, you know, what things they can improve, what things they can't improve. So a lot of medical information is already being placed in AI, looking at, what's this necessary, comparing doctors' approaches and methodologies across networks to understand, well, hey, did you really need that knee surgery? Or are they being overzealous, and in treatment? Or maybe this doctor is always asking for these types of things, but they really should be asking for these types of things because they're more effective and they're lower cost. So, unfortunately for all of us, a lot of our data is, that's why I said I wish if I could go back in a time machine, I'd say, yeah, don't sign up for some of these. It sounded great, to be able to say, oh, now my doctor has my medical records. They can pull them up on a screen. Well, now anyone, yeah, it's still quarantined to just that doctor being able to pull it up that you've authorized. But, given what the insurance companies and the other folks that have need of that data also have it, but they're also utilizing it in a way that I don't think people even recognize. So.
wow, that is
Yeah, I'm looking at the
scary.
look
And
on your face. I don't mean to scare you this early in the morning.
wow, no, I recently my doctor did hand me a form and tell me that they were started to implement AI for note taking. I It never even dawned on me all the other implications that that had. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So they're taking the notes and then they're comparing them across practices to say this is what the due diligence and standard of care. See, that used to be between you and your doctor, but now it's being moved more to a universal version of standard of care because they can utilize AI to correlate all this information in near real time. So yeah, so you could be sitting in an appointment in the near future and that your doctor says, "Well, I think she needs these eye drops." And they'll say, "No, no, no, she needs these. They're bargain rate. They do the exact same efficacy. This is what you're going to recommend to her." So, yeah, we're moving in that direction. Not just with that, I think it's also schools. That's why I said it's important for parents to really, um, a lot of institutions are moving to because of the shortage of teachers. Um, a lot of
Oh,
them are moving to online classrooms. The kids come to the school, but then they've got online teachers. Um, so I think they have a school opening this fall in Chicago that's going to be all AI. And they basically have coaches, and the students are learning on the screen. So you have to be extremely involved and engaged because things are changing so fast and people are handing over the reins to technology at a speed and you can't just say, "Oh, well, now they've got access to a classroom all over the world." Well, yeah, maybe they do, but not every philosophy and thought process that goes on in the world is something you want your child to espouse to or understand. And so people have to be very keen to understand this technology is coming. It's here. I shouldn't say it's coming. It's here. It's being implemented at breakneck speed. And so you have to really, back to your question, you have to read those the things that everyone just clicks through, you have to read them. Even if you just scan it to look for certain things, scan it, look for AI, look for cybersecurity, look for use of your data. What are they using it for? Um, some of the websites even have motion sensors, so they know you're moving your head, when you're moving your mouse, and you have to be very, very vigilant for yourself and for your family. It's a wild west of data. Everyone wants data because data is they call it the new oil. They've been saying that for the last 10 years, but I think it surpasses oil in terms of value right now.
oh wow. That
Yeah.
that yeah, you have definitely just blown my mind this morning. Oh my God.
So yeah, yeah, but you see why I've been in it for 20 years. It's interesting and I really love doing the work of helping protect people in it because just because someone comes up with a great idea and says, "Oh yeah, let's stick these kids in front of a screen." Like they're already having problems with screen time. Like, now you're gonna at like 6 hours like a day. Now they're gonna sit in front of a computer. It's preposterous to me, but if you don't know and you aren't having conversations and there aren't people out there saying, "Hey, you might want to understand what's coming down the road. You might want to go to that PTA meeting." It's not just another PTA meeting. They're not just handing out cookies. They're telling you what's going to happen to your child in school year 2027, right?
Mm.
And you need to understand what that means. When they send out those notices and they're long and they seem boring, take a second to glance through because a lot of times they're telling you from your doctor's office, this is we're implementing AI. Now the question is who's getting that data, right? It's not
Mhm.
just implementing AI just so that they can have faster care. There's data on the other side of that. And so those are the kinds of questions people have to start asking because when you don't ask, then it's assumed compliance. And that's been the case since the start of social media, all of these entities. I remember way back, I'll say, right? I'm
Mhm.
not, doing this, uh, even in the federal spaces, a lot of the companies felt like, well, yeah, we tell people you put your information on this social media platform, it is open source. Anyone can come on and see it. Anyone, and so therefore, by you putting it there, you're complicit. Whether you think you are or not, you might say, well, I only want my friends. Well, we give you an option for your friends, but if you choose not to use that, then that information is open source. It's open to anyone. And so you imagine what that looks like with all of these social media platforms all over the world. And now you've got AI with access to all the information that was not publicly available, but now is available to AI. And you've got identity crisis. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Got identity crisis. So cyber's not going anywhere. It's just going to be figuring out for people, what are we willing to tolerate, right?
Wow. Yeah.
Sorry, that was like a cup of coffee for you this morning, right?
Yeah, exactly. Wow. So
Yeah.
if we look at your business and your income now, I think earlier you had mentioned that it wasn't strictly the government, so you're
Hmm.
not tied up with always worrying about where's my next contract coming in and all the nuances that go with working strictly with the government. You actually have commercial contracts as well, which kind of
Yes.
keeps your income a little more even, I would think.
Yeah, it does. It does. And it makes it, and part of it was just kind of looking out and realizing that I wanted to get into more commercial support. I was kind of drawn out of government a little bit through a couple of different nonprofits that came to me and said, "Hey, we need help," and so that's really sort of how we've always done commercials. So I don't want to make it sound like we were pure play government. We always have had commercial entities. Matter of fact, I was just talking with my son last night. He was amazed that we actually did work for LifeLock when they were an incubator company.
Oh,
So in their very, very early days, we helped with the security for them. So we've always have been sort of a mix. I want to say probably around 2017, 2018, we started being a little bit more focused on the commercial side, and then also focused on expansion globally. So, but again, that was just excellent timing because of everything that's going on now. I'm thankful that we made those pivots when we did. So
yeah,
everything has a blessing, right?
yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah,
and it sounds like you you got into the industry when it was still pretty new and got a lot of training that you might not otherwise have gotten, and then realized
yeah,
that, hey, this is actually going to be a big thing, and I think I can do a better job than some of these other companies I've been dealing with.
yeah,
And here you are
yeah,
23 years later and doing well and kind of having the pom-pom saying, let's go. We need to
right.
be more diligent with what we're doing here. And don't forget to read that fine print, because you want to be the one in control of where your data's going. You don't want to be surprised one day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have to be in control and you have to know. Um, if that's one thing I think I would leave people with is that the power still lies within you. And that's across the board. That's personally, financially, your data integrity, your cybersecurity, all that power is still with you. And the only way you lose it is if you choose to give it away. And choosing to give it away isn't necessarily saying, here, have it. It can be just as simple as not paying attention and not being intentional with how you manage your life and manage your destiny. And it's even more important now because if you aren't managing it, they have plenty of robots waiting in the wings to help manage it on your behalf, unfortunately. And even more so now, I think financially, with the economies changing, even currencies are changing. it's important to be intentional and to be very strategic and to start to not just look at, how do I get through today, but how do I get through tomorrow? Because time is literally speeding up on all of us, right? I feel like here we are in June, and um, I literally feel like I remember waking up on January 1. Feel like that was yesterday. And so you have to keep focused on both sides. Like where am I going to be 5 years, 10 years? Where's my family going to be 100 years,
Mm.
200 years? What does that look like? And start maneuvering your life from those different vantage points.
So thank you so much for joining us today. And a huge thank you to Danyetta Fleming Magana for sharing her story and reminding us to be intentional about sharing our data. If you found value in this conversation, please subscribe, leave a review, and share the Empowered Money Girl with your friends. The more we spread these stories, the more women we can empower to live boldly, both financially and in every part of life. Until next time, keep thriving. And remember, your journey to empowerment starts with you.